Binface, the face of Bin. This is a video about a miniature of a man who dresses up as an intergalactic warrior with a bin for a helmet. Apparently, he's gaining some attention these days, but I just think this is a neat miniature, and I'm going to paint him for your pleasure, and talk about an alternate universe where he has rules in my favourite tabletop game, the 2nd edition of Warhammer 40k. It's time for another miniature escape with me, Miniscape. Before I begin, it may be helpful to define some terms in the real English language. Bin. Noun. A receptacle for rubbish or recyclable materials. Verb. To discard or throw something away. Count. A title of nobility. Face. The front bit of your head. Rubbish. Waste materials, or an indicator of one's performance in a certain activity. For example, even though Arsenal beat Tottenham, their performance was rubbish. They can only score by walking it in. With that out of the way, I have mounted this model on the 25mm base provided using superglue, and furnished the top of the base with some English sand. With the model primed with matte black spray, it was time for the base coat. Count Binface wears a grey costume with black straps, boots and gloves, so I shall begin by using this deep grey by Vallejo and painting it on all the cloth areas. Now please, don't regard this as a tutorial. I don't have a plan, and I am by no means a pro, but feel free to follow along if you dare. Next, I mix some of this grey with a spot of black, wipe most of it off my brush, and paint it on the armoured sections, gloves and boots so the edges pick up the paint. The idea is to create some highlights, but I realise that he may become too monochrome, which I guess he is, but it's my model and I can do what I like. I doubt Binface is going to have me for an accurate painting. Anyway, I think black on models looks better if it's actually a dark grey blue. To that end, I take this Thunderhawk blue and mix it with a little black, and then apply it over most of the armour panels, mainly the uppermost sections that would catch the most light. The next few steps are just highlighting that effect. The first highlight colour is this Lothan blue, which I mix with a little bit of the previous mixture, so the colours tie together. This time I aim for the edges of the armour panels, such as the plates near his wrists, and the edges of the shoulder pads, and all these armour pads here and there, which look like he's robbed the youth of their skateboarding shin pads. When all that's done, I use Lothan Blue Neat and go over most of those highlights again, but start with a small brush to keep them a bit sharper. And finally, I mix in a little bit of white and paint it on a few select places just to make those parts pop. For example, on this scratch, which I painted on the shoulder pad. And this is how he looks so far. Now I want to add a bit more depth to the grey cloth, so I'm going to use a black wash first in the recesses to give it some shadows. Of course, this has made the whole grey cloth situation look a lot darker than it was before, so I intend to go back and lighten them up a little bit. But before that, and while the wash is drying, I'm going to have a crack at the cloak. I was definitely tempted to paint the cloak red to contrast all the black and grey. In photos it looks like it's black on one side and silver outside, but I opted for all black, like a black bin bag. Again, I used the same deep grey as before, with a little black mixed in, painted all over the cloak to begin with. And the mixture didn't turn out to be dark enough to begin with, so I added more black and gave it another pass. I returned to the grey cloth areas and used deep grey neat to paint all the areas except the folds and the recesses. And then I add a spot of white to the deep grey and paint the raised areas so they stand out. On the cloak, I add some more shadows, this time by mixing some black paint with AK Glaze Medium. I admit, my process is a bit chaotic, and it's not as precise as it could be. That's just the way I work. I make it up as I go along, and I enjoy it that way, though I admit I could probably get a similar result with fewer steps. Now for some highlights on the cloak. My favourite way of doing this is to paint short, sharp lines perpendicular to the folds of the cloth. The first set of lines are with deep grey, up and down every fold, to emphasise the raised areas. After that, I mix the grey with some white to make a very light grey, and repeat the process, but with lines that are thinner and shorter. And once that process is done, the cloak looks a bit like this. Now, it wasn't until the day after painting this, I realised how harsh the second highlight on the cloak looked. To remedy this, I applied a glaze, which was a combination of deep grey and AK glaze medium, and I applied this carefully on the raised parts of the folds of the cloak. In an alternate reality, where Count Binface was a playable character in Warhammer 40k 2nd edition, he has a profile the same as an Imperial Guard Primaris Psycho Lord. He is, after all, a human, albeit a rather proficient one. He has a movement of 4, weapon skill, ballistic skill 6, strength 4, toughness 4, 4 wounds, initiative 6, 3 attacks, and a leadership of 8. His weapons are his bare hands, and his razor-sharp wit, but such are his ripostes, that in hand-to-hand combat he has 2 parries. He also has Lid of Bin, but I will return to that later. Let's say he can have 2 war gear cards for the sake of shenanigans, though they can't be race-specific ones, so no taking the Mask of Jane Czar or Dante's Death Mask. Wait a minute, parries? War gear cards? Why in the heck am I talking about rules for an archaic edition of this beloved tabletop game? Simple. Even in 2026, it's the version I play. I could make up rules for... hang on. 11th edition, since apparently the game has gone that far now. But I am not the man to do this. I'll leave that for someone else. Anyway, on the subject of ranged weapons, he can use the lid of his helmet as a returning bladed discus. Let's call it the Lid of Bin. In his shooting phase, Binface can throw his helmet lid at a target up to 12 inches away. Roll to hit, and if successful, nominate a further target within 2 inches of the first. If another hit is scored, repeat, and so on until a miss is rolled, or a total of 5 enemies have been hit. Resolve hits as normal for shooting attacks, using the lid's strength 5 and a -2 save modifier, with 1 damage. After all hits have been resolved, the lid automatically returns to Count Binface's helmet. Count Binface is wearing the equivalent of carapace armor, with a 4+ save. However, he also has a power field save of 4+, which cannot be modified. In addition, when resolving any shooting attack, for any hits scored, roll a d6 again. On a 1, 2, or 3, the shot has struck his carapace armor. Use his 4+ save. If the result is 4, 5, or 6, the shot has struck his durable chrome alloy helmet, and the armor save is 2+. For those unfamiliar with this edition, a model could have armor and a personal energy field. Any energy field saves were unmodifiable and taken before armor saves. Having survived many a grilling from belligerent journalists, Binface has something of a steel will. Therefore, he is immune to all effects of psychology. He always passes any leadership test he is called upon to make, and he never breaks. Binface doesn't have a strategy rating. Instead, he always deploys after all enemy units, including infiltrators, and he may choose if he takes the first turn or not. The "I need no one else" rule states that Count Binface is a character choice. However, if he is chosen, he must be the only model in your army. You can never take any allies for him. This explains why he has no points cost. Rules are rubbish anyway. If there is any question about any rules and how they interact with Count Binface, resolve any disputes with the roll of a d6. The Binface player may re-roll the d6 once for each dispute, if they wish. Binface is something of a traveller between Earth and Sigma 9. His frequent travels through the warp have allowed him to command its powers. As a result, he is a level 4 Psyker, with access to the Adeptus and Inquisitor psychic powers. In addition, he may store a force card in his bin for use in future psychic phases. Count Binface is the kind of opponent that never really goes away. If he loses his last wound, instead of removing the model, roll a d6. If the result is 1 to 4, he returns to the fight with 1 wound and carries on as normal. On a 5 or 6, Binface is slain and removed from play. I guess the only thing now is to do a battle report with him. Who do you think he should fight first? It's time for the bin and the face of Binface to be fully realised in the painting of his chrome helmet. I begin with this dark metal colour and paint it all over the helmet except these deep channels. I also paint this chest doodad. I then mix in some Vallejo aluminium and paint the rim of lid, and some other areas I figured would be more shiny. I then repeat this with aluminium alone, and also highlight his chest doodad with this. On the chest, I paint a dot of red and a smaller dot of orange on the top. On the base, I paint it all over with tan earth, top and rim. And after 2 layers of that, a little dry brush with dark sand. And that's our man done. Count Binface, intergalactic warlord, now bothering folks in the 41st millennium. So I have the mini, I have the rules. I guess I just need an opposing army. Should he sweep up some bugs? Should he waste some Eldar? Or trash some traitors? Do let me know in the comments. This is not a sponsored video, but I do want to leave a link to the Troublemaker Games website, just in case you want to purchase one of these for yourself. But beware, they have been in demand recently, and tin prices seem to be on the rise. And with that, I had better go put the rubbish out. Take care, and thanks for watching. Out in deep space, Sigma 9, his heart to England is sure inclined. So he heads there to take your bins out, discount 99 flakes, nationalise Adele, Count Binface, grey clothed, black shin pads, chrome helmet, silver mantle, glowing visor, Count Binface, Count Binface.